We continue now at the top of Daf Chav Tesam Beis Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 29b. The Mishnah says, Elu devarim shel ovdei kochavim, the following things of idol worshippers, asurin, they are forbidden, v'isuran isur hana, and they are forbidden to get benefit from them. And the Mishnah continues, Hayayin, the wine of ovdei kochavim, v'hachometz shel ovdei kochavim, shahaya mitchilaso yayin, and the vinegar of ovdei kochavim, of idol worshippers, if originally it was wine. And Rashi explains, shahaya mitchilaso yayin, originally it was wine, it means biyad ha'oved kochavim. In the possession of the idol worshipper, it was wine. For example, that would exclude a case where the Oved Kochavim buys vinegar from the Jew. The lo mitzar bahana, there it actually would not be forbidden to get benefit from. The time of the asr bahana, because the reason it's asr bahana is mishum the deal manasche, was because maybe he poured it to his Avoda Zara. The chometz lo manasach, he's not going to pour as a libation vinegar to his Avoda Zara. And the Mishnah continues, v'cheres hadriyani, and the Hadrianic earthenware. Rashi explains, v'cheres hadriyani b'gemar mefarish. The Gemara will explain this. Shashoreyu b'mayim, it's soaked in water. V'yotze yayin haniv labo, and the wine that's absorbed in it comes out. And the Mishnah continues, v'oros levuvin, and hides with a tear opposite the heart. And Rashi explains, v'oros levuvin shakorin keneged halev, they tear the hide opposite the heart. Darkon lasos kein la'avodas kochavim, they would do this for their Avodah Zara. Umotzian es halev derech hanekev, they would take the heart out through the hole. Umitzar mishom zivchei mesim, and it would be forbidden because it's considered to be zivchei mesim. And the Mishnah continues, Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer, Rav Shimon Gamliel says, Bizman sha'akera shalo ogol, if the tear is round, so then aser, then it's forbidden. But mashach, but if it's elongated mutter, then it is permitted. And Rashi explains, mashach mutter, if it's elongated, it's mutter, she'enos and kain, la'avodas kochavim, because they wouldn't tear it in that fashion for Avodah Zara. And the Mishnah continues, Basar hanichnas la'avodas kochavim, if meat enters into a house of idol worship, mutter, it is permitted. V'hayotze, if it comes out of a house of idol worship, asr, it is forbidden. Mimneishu kezivchei mesim, because it's considered like offerings to the dead, in other words, to Avodah Zara. Divrei Rabbi Akiva, these are the words of Rabbi Akiva. And Rashi explains, V'hayotze asr, if it comes out of a house of idol worship, it's forbidden. Bahana, it's forbidden to get benefit from it. De'osin tekrovis, because again, it's made as an offering. And the Mishnah continues, Aholchin latarpus, with regards to those who are going to the festival of Avodah Zara, Asr loses v'loses iman, it's forbidden to do business with them. V'haboin, but those who are coming from the festival, mutarn, it is mutter, it's permitted. And Rashi explains, Asr loses v'loses de'azulu model avodas kochavim. He's going to go and he's going to thank his Avodah Zara. V'yo dezavni midi de'itzrich la'avodas kochavim l'takrovis, and furthermore, he's going to purchase something that's needed for the offerings of the Avodah Zara. And the Mishnah continues at the two dots, no dosa o kochavim, the wineskins of idol worshippers, v'kan kanein, and their jugs, v'yayin shel Yisrael kanus bohen, and the wine of a Jew is contained within them, asurin, they are prohibited, v'isuran isur hana, and the prohibition is in isur hana, you can't get any benefit. Divrei Rabbi Meir, these are the words of Rabbi Meir. V'chachamim omrim, and the chachamim say, ein isuran isur hana, the prohibition is not in isur hana. And the Mishnah continues at the two dots, hachartsonim v'hazogin, grape seeds and grape skins, shalov de kochavim, of idol worshippers, asurin, they are prohibited, v'isuran isur hana, and the prohibition is in isur hana, you can't get benefit. Divrei Rabbi Meir, these are the words of Rabbi Meir. V'chachamim omrim, and the chachamim say, lachen asurin, if they're moist, then they are prohibited, but yeveshin mutar, and if they're dry, then they are permitted. And Rashi says, chartsonim v'zogin psola shel anavim, this is the psolas of the grapes, the leftover waste of the grapes, v'garinin shebesochon, and the seeds that are inside of them, and lachem, if they're moist, kol shnei masar chodesh, if they're moist, that means 12 months, so then asurin af bahana, so then they're prohibited, even bahana, you cannot get benefit. And the Mishnah continues, Hamurius, Rashi explains, Hamurius, Shuman shel dagim, that's the fat of fish, the Bach changes it from Shemen to Shuman, Ugavinas beis unaiki, and the cheese of beis unaiki, Rashi says, Ugavinos beis unaiki, Shem hakfar, that's the name of a particular village, Avol shar gavinos, but other cheeses, Mutar and Bahana, they're permitted to get benefit of a Gemara Mefarshla, the Gemara will explain this. In any case, the Mishnah continues again, the Murius and the Gavinas beis unaiki, Shalov de kochavim, that belong to idol worshippers, Asurin, they are prohibited, V'isuran, Isur hana, and again, the prohibition is you can't get any benefit. Divrei Rabbi Meir, these are the words of Rabbi Meir. The Chachamim say that the prohibition is not an Isur hana, it's not a prohibition to get benefit. And the Mishnah continues, Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Shol Rabbi Yishmael asked Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Yishmael asked Rabbi Yoshua, Kishahayu mahalchin b'derech, when they were walking on the road, Amar lo, he said to him, Mipnei ma osru gevinos ovdei kochavim, why is it that the cheeses of idol worshippers are forbidden? Amar lo, he said to him, Mipnei shema'amidin osa b'keva shel nevela, it's forbidden because they curdle the cheese in the stomach of nevela, which is not kosher. Amar lo, he said to him, Valo kevas ola chamura mikevas nevela, but the stomach of a carbon ola, that's stricter than the stomach of a nevela. And amru, and yet they say, Kohen shadaito yaf, if a Kohen is able to tolerate it, sor fachaya, he can swallow the contents of the kevas ola when they're raw. Velo hodulo, and they don't admit that that is the case, that that really is permitted. Avol amru, but they do say, einen in velo moalin, they say he can't get benefit, but it's not meila, it's not an isser, on a doraisa level is the point. Rashi explains, Mipnei ma osru, again the question was, why is it that the cheeses of ovdei kochavim are osur? The Rabbanon kaboila, this is a question on the Rabbanon. Again, we had a machlokas between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim, and the Rabbanon were the ones, da osru lo ba'achila v'lo b'hana, they're the ones that say it's forbidden to eat, but not to get benefit. And Rashi continues, Valo kevas ola chamura, again the stomach of an ola that is stricter than kevas nevela. Sha'ola asura behana, because a carbon ola is also to get benefit from umoalin ba, and there's a halacha of meila. Shedaito yafen, we say that if you have a Kohen who's daito yafa, meaning he can tolerate it, she'eno katsum, always, but he's not disgusted by it, sarfa goma, so he can swallow the contents. Velo hodu lo liomrim kain leheter lechatchila. Now they don't say, they don't admit that is actually mutter lechatchila. Aval amru lo nanin, but they do say that it's not me'ila. Anytime a Mishnah says that language of lo nen and velo moalin, shari midoraisa, what it means is that it's permitted on a doraisa level. Avorabbanon de gazruba, it's just also on a derabbanon level. The rabbanon made a gezerah. V'hachi mashman, it means as follows: lo nen and midrabbanon. You can't get benefit midrabbanon. V'im but if you do get benefit, ein ba me'ila, it's not me'ila. And Rashi says, Alma, we see mida lesba me'ila, from the fact that there's no me'ila. Shma amino, you see from this, haycholav akonis bekevas ha'ola, kepir shabialmahu, that what's gathered, that milk that's gathered bekevas ha'ola in the stomach of the carbon ola, it's kepir shabialma, it's like nothing, and therefore it shouldn't create any isser. And the Mishnah continues, Amar lo, he said back to him, Rabbi Yoshua said back to Rabbi Yishmael, the reason really why the cheeses of ovdei kochavim are osur is mipnei shema'amidin osa bekevas egle avodas kochavim. It's actually because they curdle it in the stomach of the calves of Avoda Zara. Rashi explains, bekevas egle avodas kochavim shenasu lotekrovis, which is like an offering. V'gabe avodas kochavim afilu perish osur, by Avoda Zara, even if it would be like nothing, even if it would be considered like excrement, it's osur. Tenichale benifche sheyira yafe kedamrinan beGemara, because you want the animal, that the animal should look fat, and that's what the Gemara says. That's why it's something that he wants in terms of worshiping the Avoda Zara, and so therefore that's really the reason why the cheeses are forbidden. Amar lo, but he said back to him, Imkain, if so, if that's the case, lama lo asra b'hana. So really, why isn't it asra b'hana? It should be asra b'hana. And the Mishnah continues, Heisiu l'davar acher. So he took him to another topic. He wanted to change topics. Rashi says, Heisiu l'davar acher lo rotza legalos davar habor. He didn't want to explain this clear matter. Kedemafarish beGemara time, but the Gemara will explain the reason why he didn't want to clarify for him the answer. So he changed the topic. Samar lo, he said, Yishmael heichat hakor. He said, Yishmael, how do you read the following pasuk? The pasuk says, Kitovim dodecha miyayin. This is a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. It says, Kitovim dodecha miyayin. So do you read it dodecha? Oh, or do you read it Kitovim dodayich? Or do you read it in the Lashon Nekeva dodayich? Amar lo, so Rabbi Yishmael said back to him, Kitovim dodayich. I read it as Kitovim dodayich. Amar lo, he said to him, that's not true. Because you look at the pasuk nearby, it shows that it really should be dodecha, because it says l'reach shemonecha tovim, and that's written in the masculine, so you know it's masculine. And Rashi explains, Kitovim dodecha is lashon zachar. If it's dodecha, it's in the masculine. O dodayich lashon nekeva, or is it dodayich lashon nekeva? V'achi kamra knesses Yisrael yishakeni hakadosh baruch hu minashikos piu kikach amar li tovim dodayich miyayin. If it's going to be a lashon nekeva, so then it's not talking about hakadosh baruch hu. The pasuk is actually talking about knesses Yisrael, and the response was chaveru melamed ov. The pasuk nearby shows shu lashon zachar, that it's actually masculine. U knesses Yisrael hidakamar lefnei Shechina, and it's Knesset Yisrael that's saying in front of the Shechina, l'reach shemonecha tovim al kein alomos ahivucha lo shayich l'meimar l'nekeva, and that you can't say is feminine. And the Gemara says, Yayin Minolan, from where do we know that the wine of Ovdei Kochavim is Aser? Amar Rabba Bar Avua says, Amar Krotz, because the Pasuk says in Sefer Devarim, Asher Chelev Zvachemu Yochelu Yishtu Yein Nesicham. It compares the Zevach, the sacrifices to Avoda Zara, to the wine of the libations. Ma Zevach Aser Bahana, just like the sacrifices to Avoda Zara are Aser Bahana. Af Yayin Nami Aser Bahana, so too the wine is Aser Bahana. Rashi says, we're talking about the wine that was poured as a libation to the Avodah Zara. That's going to be Aser Bahana. And the Gemara says, Zevach Gufim in all, and where do we know that the sacrifices, that they're Aser Bahana? Techsiv, as it's written in the Pasuk in Tehillim, Vayitsamdu leval Peor, they attached themselves to Baal Peor, Vayochlu Zivchei Mesim, and it mentions Zivchei Mesim. So we learn as follows, Ma Meis Aser Bahana, just like a dead body is forbidden Bahana, Af Zevach Nami Aser Bahana, so too the sacrifices to Avodah Zara are Aser Bahana. Umeis Gufim in all, and from where do we know that the dead body is Aser Bahana? Asya Sham Sham Me'egla Arufa, we learn it out of Gzeir Shav, it says Sham, both by Meis and by Egla Arufa. Ksiv Hacha, it's written over here, Vatamas Sham Miriam, it uses the word Sham by the death of Miriam. Uksiv Hasam, and it's written over there by Egla Arufa, Va'arfu Sham Esa Egla Banachal, it uses the word Sham. Ma'alahalan Aser Bahana, just like over there it's Aser Bahana. Afkanami Aser Bahana, so too over here it's Aser Bahana. V'hasam and all, and over there by Egla Rufa, how do you know it's Aser Bahana? Amri Devei Rabbi Yanai, they say in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yanai, Kapara Ksibba, the word Kapara, atonement, is written by Egla Rufa, so it's Kekachim, it's considered like Kachim that are Aser Bahana. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "V'hachometz shalov de kochavim shahaya mitchilaso yayin." Let's say you have the chometz, the vinegar of ovdei kochavim that originally was wine, so that's also going to be forbidden because it became forbidden when it was the wine of ovdei kochavim, and that issur remains when it becomes chometz, when it becomes vinegar. The Gemara says, "Pshita it's obvious, mishum da'ach mitzpaka le'isur." You think just because it became vinegar, therefore the issur goes away? Amar Rav Ashi says, "Ha'asal ashmin," and what it's coming to teach us is as follows. Chometz shalonu biyad ovid kochavim. If you have our chometz, our vinegar in the possession of ovid kochavim, ein sarich chosam b'so chosam. You don't need a seal within a seal. You don't need like a double seal in order to know that it's kosher. Because im mishum in suche, if you're worried that it's going to be poured as a libation to Avodah Zara, lo menasli. The point of our Mishnah is that they're not going to pour chometz as a libation to Avodah Zara, so that's not a concern. V'im mishum echlufe, and if the concern is they're going to switch it around with chometz that's aser, kevon dika chosam, since there's a seal, even one seal, lo tarachum is zaif. He's not going to bother to forge. He's not going to bother to try to switch things around. Amar Rabbi Law says, Shaninu, we learned, yayin mevushal shel ovdei kochavim, if you have yayin mevushal, cooked wine of ovdei kochavim, shayamitchi laso yayin, which originally was wine, aser, that's forbidden. Similar idea to chometz. The Gemara says, pshit, it's obvious, mishum de'ivshil pakale isura, because it's cooked, it loses the isur. Amar Rav Ashi says the same idea, ha'asal ashmin, and it's coming to teach us, yayin mevushal shalonu, if we have our yayin mevushal, biyad ovdei kochavim, in the hands of the ovdei kochavim, ein sarach chosam b'so chosam, you don't need a seal within a seal. And again, imishum in suche, if you're worried that they're going to pour it as a libation, lo menasli, they're not going to pour yayin mevushal to the Avodah Zara. V'imishum, and if it's because it's switched around, again, as long as you have one chosam, that is enough. And Rashi explains, Amar Rav Ashi, Ha'asal Ashmin Chometz Shalanu Chometz Shal Yisrael Shefgidu Eitzel Oved Kochavim. The vinegar of a Yisrael that was deposited by an idol worshipper, Einot Tzarech Al Chosam Echad, just needs one seal. The whole of Ashmin Masis and Delo Menaskli Chometz, because once the Mishnah is teaching us that they don't pour Chometz as a libation, so all you have is a Chlufei, and Mishum Echlufei Letzarech Al Achlifo Berami Meno, to go and switch it around. Lo Tarachim Ezayv, he's not going to do that and forge a seal. Listor Chosam Shal Yisrael V'Lasos Chosam Achar Mezuyef, to go forge a seal, that he's not going to do. And Rashi continues, yayin mevushal, by yayin mevushal, a similar idea. Mashma shaya mitchilaso yayin biad ovid kochavim. At first the Gemara thinks it means that it was wine originally in the hands of the ovid kochavim, ubishlo, and then he cooked it. Aser bahana misham tchilaso, it's aser bahana because originally it was aser, and the Gemara says again, that's obvious, just because he cooked it, of course, the yisr doesn't go away. And so then the Gemara said, ha'asal ashmin, it's coming to teach us, taima ovid kochavim bishlo, that the reason it's a problem is because the ovid kochavim cooked it. Ha bishlo yisrael beheter, but if the the Jew cooked it beheter, sulo mitzvah bahano, it's no longer going to be asr bahano. The kamash malon de lo menaschi ovdei kochavim yayin mavushal, it's teaching us that ovdei kochavim idol worshippers are not going to pour yayin mavushal, cooked wine as a libation. Hilkach yayin mavushal shalanu shuhufkad lioved kochavim mein sarach. Therefore, if it's our yayin mavushal that's deposited by an oved kochavim, again it only needs one chosam. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Amud Aleph.